Alright, so today I want to show you the difference between the lesser and the Mojave ball python. A lot of people have been asking, what is the difference? Which one should I buy, the lesser or the Mojave? As a matter of fact, if you took both of them side by side, they look really similar, just the base genes by themselves, and they're both in the blue-eyed leucistic complex. So you breed two lessers together, 25% of the time you get an all-white snake with blue eyes, and it's the same thing with the Mojave. You'll also get the white snake, and both of them are relatively inexpensive. They've been around for a really long time, so you can actually pick them up in combos. Sometimes you get multi-gene combos with either the lesser or the Mojave, and a lot of people are like, all right, which one should I buy? And really it comes down to what kind of combos you want to make. When you start mixing them in with other genes, you get really significantly different visual effects when you start mixing lesser or Mojave with some of the other genes. And today what I want to do is I want to jump over the internet and I want to show you in detail the difference between the lesser and the Mojave ball python. Alright, so I want to jump over here on Morphmarket.com and I want to start with the lesser ball python. This is what a lesser looks like, and at first glance you could definitely tell it is different than your normal classic wild type ball python. You can definitely tell on the sides the patterns are significantly reduced, almost into keyhole little spots right here. And it's kind of interesting if you compare the lesser to the Mojave. A lot of times the lesser doesn't really have the bigger holes in the pattern compared to the Mojave. I'd say in this case it's kind of opened up in some holes on the sides of the pattern. You can see definitely over here there's no holes in the little kind of reduced floating alien heads, I guess you call it. And the lesser is a really bright yellow, kind of it's definitely different than the pastel, not quite as bright all the way from top to bottom as the pastel, and it seems like most of the bright yellow in the lessers is really on the top of the snake. You can definitely tell the background is dark, but not really that dark. And if you actually compare the lesser to the Mojave, take a look at this. It looks almost exactly the same as a lesser at first glance, but you can definitely tell in the Mojave it's a lot darker of a background right on top of the snake. It has a really dark head. If you actually go back to the lesser and kind of look at the head, it's a little bit lighter on the head and a little bit more kind of faded in the background compared to the Mojave. The Mojave is really dark up on top. So you can actually take a Mojave and breed it to a lesser, and this is what you get. You get a lesser Mojave blue-eyed leucistic. This is kind of the ultimate blue-eyed leucistic. And it's kind of interesting, if you actually take two Mojaves and breed them together, you get an all-white snake, the super Mojave, but the super Mojaves actually have kind of a grayed out head and sometimes a little bit of gray on the body. It's not really super bright white. And if you actually take two lessers and breed them together, you'll get a really bright white snake, but a lot of times with the super lessers you'll actually get bigger than normal eyes. Some people call them bug eyes. They look kind of weird, and I'd say in this one it looks like maybe the eyes are just a little bit bigger than normal. I'd say this is pretty close to normal. Sometimes they can look really big on those super lessers, almost look kind of alien-like. But if you're looking for the ultimate blue-eyed leucistic, the lesser Mojave is the way to go. So this is the GHI. I kind of want to start with some of these base genes and then add lesser to the GHI and then Mojave, so you can actually see the difference between the lesser and Mojave when combined with other genes. And the GHI is a really dark morph. A lot of times, I'd say in most cases, it actually really jumbles up the pattern. It's a pattern mutation, and it's also a dark morph. You mix it with other genes, and with the GHI, you get a really super dark background in a lot of cases. This is what happens when you mix lesser with GHI. Take a look at this, and in this case it seems like the lesser actually lightens the GHI just a little bit, and you can definitely see there's really no line down the top. You'll actually see a line with the Mojave, but you actually won't see that line in most cases when you actually mix in. This is the lesser GHI. So if you actually take the Mojave, this is like one of the ultimate combos. Take a look at this. This is the GHI Mojave, and when actually someone starts talking to me about Mojave, the first thing that comes into my mind is the GHI Mojave. And a lot of times the black is really super dark on these GHI Mojaves, and the line on top is like a super bright yellow. And if you actually see people holding these and pull them out and kind of working with them, it almost doesn't even look like a real snake. It's just so incredible. So here is the pastel. The pastel is a yellow gene. It brings out a lot of yellow in a lot of cases. Sometimes the pastel will actually fade over time. In some cases, it depends on the line of pastel. The pastel also reduces the pattern on the side, so you don't really have the alien heads, kind of like this little Roswell gray alien head you see on the side. A lot of times pastel will reduce that. This is what happens if you take lesser and work it in with the pastel. Take a look at this. And in this case, you actually get a combination between the two where the yellow stays really yellow, but the background kind of fades out a little bit from the lesser. And if you actually mix it in with the Mojave, take a look at this. This is completely different. You actually get, and a lot of times you get a really dark background. Sometimes you get some of this fading around kind of the spots here, and sometimes it's a little bit darker, but in almost all cases with the pastel Mojave, you get a really black outline on all this bright yellow. It makes for some really awesome combos. As a matter of fact, if you just took the Pastavi, which is the pastel Mojave, and work it in with other genes, a lot of times you can get a really super dark background and have this yellow really pop out super bright. It's a really awesome combo. So here is the pinstripe. The pinstripe is about as all gold of a snake as you can get, super gold. It's actually a dominant mutation, so if you breed it to something else, half the offspring come out as pinstripe. And this is what happens when you work lesser into the pinstripe. You get what is known as a kingpin. So you actually kind of fade out the pinstripe a little bit. It looks, I'd say it looks really similar to the Mojave pinstripe if you compare the lesser pinstripe. This is the lesser pinstripe, and it doesn't quite darken it as much as the Mojave. This is the Mojave pinstripe over here, and the nickname for this one is the Jigsaw. And it's kind of difficult to actually kind of wrap your name around some of the slangs, because if you walk up to a table at the reptile show, sometimes they'll have like kingpins and jigsaws, and you're like, what in the world is that? A lot of times they don't actually break down the genes into, you know, kind of like split the nicknames up so you know what's in them, and I think they actually should, so you can kind of, you know, you can actually cheat. You can go to your phone and kind of look it up. What is a jigsaw? This is actually the Mojave and the pinstripe, and you can definitely tell it is definitely different than the kingpin with the lesser. You get a lot more of the black kind of coming around the top, really strong stripe right down. Almost looks like someone took a jigsaw and kind of cut right down the top of the snake, kind of this jigsaw, kind of a ragged line. I think that's where it gets the name jigsaw. So the leopard really interacts completely different with these two genes. So the leopard is, I would consider the leopard kind of a pseudo dark morph. If you actually mix the leopard with a morph or a gene that has a lot of dark in it, it enhances the dark and makes it super jet black. And it kind of works just the opposite. If you work it into something like a coral glow, the leopard coral glow is not really a dark snake because it doesn't start with the dark to begin with. So the leopard doesn't really darken any of the dark. This is what happens if you mix the leopard with this is actually, wait a minute, this is actually the Mojave. I was trying to start with the lessers first. I got these two mixed up, but you can actually see with the leopard and the Mojave starts pretty dark and the leopard makes it super black, almost like a jet black. So essentially what it's doing is it's taking the darker Mojave and it's making it even more dark with the leopard. And if you actually mix the leopard with the lesser, take a look at this. This is completely different. There's a little bit of dark right on top of the lesser that the leopard is kind of enhancing just a little bit, but you really don't have the solid dark snake like you have with the Mojave that really would, you know, would really enhance it with the leopard. So you get two completely different outcomes, and I really like both of them. Really, it depends if you're going for, you know, the really dark morphs with the Mojave, or if you're looking for a really high contrast with the lesser. So this is kind of an interesting, huge difference between the lesser and the Mojave when you start working it into some of these blue-eyed leucistics, especially when you mix it with Mystic. So Mystic is in the blue-eyed leucistic complex, and when you actually mix it with lesser, you get an all-white snake with blue eyes. But if you take Mystic and you mix it in with Mojave, take a look at this, you actually get a Mystic potion. And some of these are like almost like transitional genes where they're they're in the blue-eyed leucistic, but you always don't get a white snake in all cases. Sometimes you get a lot of color actually bleeding through some of these combinations. And this is the Mystic Potion. This is kind of another slang that you almost have to have a whole list of all these slangs, you know, the Kingpin, the Jigsaw, and the Mystic Potion. It can get a little bit confusing. Really awesome looking snake. So here is talking about slang. This is actually the Karma. And if you actually look at the genes, this is actually the Phantom and the Lesser. So the Phantom is also in the blue-eyed leucistic, but it doesn't always produce a white snake. So you're kind of getting an idea here. If you actually want more white snakes from a lot of these combos, you can actually lean towards the Lesser. If you actually lean towards the Mojave, this is what happens when you actually have a Phantom and a Mojave together. You end up with a Purple Passion, a really beautiful snake. And it really depends on, I'd say, you know, I'm not sure exactly what the demand for like the Purple Passion and all the the purple colored blue-eyed leucistics are compared to the white snakes. I know the white snakes have a really high demand. As a matter of fact, when I'm selling snakes at the reptile show, everyone wants to come up to my table and they're like, oh, can I hold the white snake with the blue eyes? Because it's just so impressive and everybody wants to hold it. And versus a Purple Passion, you might have more of kind of a niche market as far as, you know, trying to sell the Purple Passions. As a matter of fact, if you ask me which one should I buy, the Lesser or the Mojave, I'd probably say to buy both, or maybe a blue-eyed leucistic where you have both the Lesser and the Mojave. Because if you actually took a Purple Passion and you bred it to like another Purple Passion, you could get, you know, the super Mojaves, which would be an all-white snake. You get the Super Phantoms, and you'd also reproduce the Purple Passion, which would be pretty cool. So this is the Lesser Crystal, and the Lesser Crystal is actually the Special and the Lesser. The Special is also in the blue-eyed leucistic. When you mix it with Lesser, you get an all-white snake with blue eyes. But if you actually take Special and you mix it with Mojave, take a look at this. This is the Crystal. As a matter of fact, when I first started in ball pythons, I almost bought a Crystal. This is one of the most beautiful snakes that I have ever seen. It is just so amazing. It has this really light color to it and a really high contrast, and it just, for some reason, it just really appeals to me, the crystals. And the crystals, it's actually the Mojave and the Special. I've actually seen people breed two crystals or two Purple Passions together and reproduce the crystals, but they also get the white snakes with the Super Mojaves. It's a pretty awesome breeding project. So here is another kind of a weird anomaly when you actually mix it with pied. So if you actually mix a Lesser in with a pied, the pied's actually a recessive mutation. You need 2 copies of the pied gene to actually get a visual. And as a matter of fact, I actually have a Lesser pied, and it's always an all-white snake. It's, you know, almost all these Lesser combos are completely white. And this is what happens if you take Mojave and work it in with a pied. You actually get a pied-looking snake with the splotches of white. And as a matter of fact, I almost bought a Mojave pied too. I had quite a few snakes on my list, the Crystal and the Mojave pied. A lot, and the Purple Passion was on my list too. And there's only so many snakes you can buy. And you start getting into these projects and you start thinking, all right, since I'm buying into this gene like the Mojave and like the, you know, the Special and the Phantom, what can I do with those to make some combos? And you kind of start crunching the numbers and the combinations and everything, and you just pretty much have to decide, what am I going to invest in? And if you ask me, what should I invest in, the Mojave or the Lesser, I would probably buy both. All right, so it is time for the question of the day. And Ball Python Addiction asks, can you show the difference between an asphalt and a normal ball python? And that is a very good question. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of genes that are really subtle, like the asphalt and the gravel and the yellow belly. And to me, they look almost exactly like normal ball pythons. I don't think I could pick them out. As a matter of fact, a lot of people actually breed like the highways and the freeways. The freeway is an asphalt yellow belly. And if you actually took that and you bred it to a normal, it's an allelic complex. So half the offspring would come out yellow belly, half would come out asphalt. And I'd say in most cases, people can't tell the difference between the yellow bellies and the asphalts. And even over on Morphmarket, they'll actually say this is an asphalt / yellow belly, because they don't really know which one is which, and it's really difficult to tell the difference. And you know, there's actually no normals produced if you breed one of those. So you know there's no normals. You can definitely tell it's one or the other, but you're not sure. lesser. And if you can actually get an asphalt and prove it out, maybe breed it back to an ivory, which is a super yellow belly, and reproduce the freeways, then it's actually worth quite a bit more money, because you know you have an asphalt versus yellow belly has been around for a really long time. And I'd say asphalt is a lot more expensive and more. As a matter of fact, if you took two asphalts and bred them together and you get the super asphalt, that could be worth thousands of dollars for the super asphalt. I think that's why they've been holding their price for a really long time. It's pretty amazing. Some of these morphs, sometimes they come down really fast, and sometimes when you're working with the highways and the freeways, I think the reason the prices are really high is because a lot of people can't tell the difference between the gravels and the yellow bellies and the asphalts. You pretty much actually know what you have. You have to breed them and prove them out, and that is the challenging part of the project. So that is pretty much it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.